Wes Morgan with JoeInsider.com, and I'm joined by Sturgis Athletic Director Mark Adams, who's been gracious enough to give us a few minutes of his time during an extremely busy August, gearing up for fall sports, and just a few weeks away now. Before we get into some of your individual teams, you've got a great stable of athletic teams here in the fall. You've got some big news here. It won't necessarily affect athletics this season, but in the coming seasons, would you like to tell us what's going on here at Sturgis?
Well, we're going to make a move to another conference. Conference people are surely familiar with, the Wolverine Conference. There are several reasons. One is that some of the Eastern Division teams in the SMAC are leaving to develop their own conference in the Jackson area. That would be Coldwater, Marshall, and Harper Creek. So, we would be the last Class B team left in the East Division and one of two left in the entire SMAC conference or Big 16, and that wouldn't be a good fit for us. I entertained us getting into the Wolverine since I became athletic director, and we were rejected the first couple times. But now the Wolverine Conference is going to take us in as the 12th member of the conference, and I think it'll be a really good fit. Their schools and their towns are similar in size to us. We will probably be the biggest school enrollment-wise, but not by a lot. But I still think from a size standpoint and similarity standpoint, it'll be a really good fit for us as far as who we're playing against and playing in that conference.
At least publicly, both sides have been pretty open about talking to each other about this relationship. I think even back in May, it was pretty clear that the Wolverine considered Sturgis at the top of the list. Or at least one of those top candidates. Why is Sturgis such a good fit for the Wolverine? Why has the Wolverine come around now? Like you mentioned, after you were rejected the first time, was it just a size issue, and why the change of heart now?
Well, they had a team leave the conference. Comstock is going to leave the conference, putting them at 11 teams, so they needed another team. I think they entertained several teams. It just worked out that we were probably the best fit as far as travel. Some of the other teams they approached didn't want to. They were too far away from some of the Wolverine teams, so they weren't interested. Still travel is going to be at times a little difficult. A trip to South Haven's a little long, especially in the middle of winter. But it's going to be a good conference for us. I think the size was kind of a barrier for the Wolverine Conference schools, but I think they looked at the entire picture. I think one of the things it really does for us is gives us back that Three Rivers rivalry in football. We've played them every year in basketball, and we play them every year in most things. But football has always been a big big rivalry game with a lot of folks coming out to watch, and it's going to get that back. I think that's going to be really exciting for people in the county.
Well, I was going to ask you, same thing with big time college athletics. The dominant headlines have been conference realignment, what's going to happen to rivalry games. People are concerned about that. I know we had talked before maybe about that Coldwater game, and that's kind of up in the air. It's going to be tough with scheduling to work some of those in. What do you think the response is going to be by Sturgis fans about going to the Wolverine and maybe losing some of those, but redeveloping some old rivalries?
Well, I've talked to a lot of people in the community, and I've not had one negative comment about moving to the Wolverine Conference. I think people have wanted that for a long time, partly because Three Rivers is in it, and it's a good county rivalry that used to exist. Vicksburg's also in it. They're fairly close, within 30 miles. The downside, we're going to lose Coldwater in football, but we're going to still be able to play them in some other sports, basketball, baseball, track. We'll still play Harper Creek, Marshall, and Coldwater in a lot of different sports. We'll lose them in the football. And that's a little unfortunate because 2015 would have been at least the 100th year that we played Coldwater in football. So that's kind of a downside. But if we can at all possible fit them in on a football schedule, we will. But the Wolverine Conference fills the entire schedule. So I don't know if it's going to be possible.
Well, lastly, I know the ink is barely dried on the agreement to join the Wolverine, which will begin in 2014-15.
Correct.
But with your interaction with the other ADs and superintendents, what do you think the blueprint is for the Wolverine moving forward? There's been talk about possibly going to 16, remaining at 12. Just from your conversations, what do you think this league is going to look like in a few years?
Well, they entertained moving to 16 teams this year, expanding to 16 teams, but they voted that down. They want to stay at 12 for whatever reasons. I anticipate them staying at 12, but I'm not sure that the conference, dynamics around the state are done. I think there's still going to be some things happening here as the populations and enrollments in these communities is fluid. So as things change in that regard, schools are going to change. For instance, Albion's not even going to be exist anymore.
Right.
You hate to see that happen, but as schools lose enrollment or gain enrollment, it's going to make the conferences shift again. I anticipate them staying at 12 for as long as possible, but you don't know what's going to happen to some of the schools, smaller schools at the bottom of the conference.
Well, it's exciting news, and with change, we were joking around the other day about having to change logos on the basketball floor and all the things behind the scenes that go into that. But there's one more year in the SMAC. It's been a great league, a lot of good matchups. Is it kind of bittersweet? How do you approach this year? Do you think you try not to think too much about it being your last year, just kind of enjoy it, or do you have one foot in the SMAC and you're also trying to prepare for the next year in the Wolverine? How do you handle this transition?
From a scheduling standpoint, I have to start looking at the Wolverine Conference. We have to start scheduling games for next year. The SMAC has been an outstanding conference for us. It is kind of bittersweet. A lot of good athletic directors I've come to know and developed relationships with, a very good group of guys. The schools are all very good schools. It will be tough to separate from a lot of those schools, but by the same token, I think I look forward to us joining the Wolverine. There's a lot of, I already know a lot of those people as well, and our kids know those schools. And, the county rivalry, like I talked about, is going to be exciting. So, it is a little bittersweet in the fact that we really have developed some good rivalries and some good relationships with all those schools. But, like I said, it's a fluid thing as far as conferences go, and we look forward to moving on to the Wolverine Conference.